Well, let's see what my YouTube friends are up to.
We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile.
Oh wait, that's not the Borg, it's Femitheist Divine. Goddamn, that woman just gets creepier every time I see her.
For this video, I want to ask all of you something. Keep in mind that I'm not asking you why, although you can tell me why. I am simply asking you how. If you're an MRA, how is it that you came to be an MRA?
Krista, I think you have something on your right shoulder. Here, let me clean it off for you.
And to believe that being an MRA is the right course for you. And how is it that you came to believe that feminism is bad?
I'm sorry, I can't get it off. That stain is as permanent as a tattoo.
If you're an MRA but don't have a problem with feminists, or if you're a member of the MGTOW cult, tell me how it is that you came to believe what you believe and to be what you are. Tell me your story. I will read every single comment that is posted on this video, and I may reference some of the comments in a future video or set of videos. Please do not send me an inbox message with this information. I get a lot of spam in my inbox and an agonizing amount of long messages, all from people that expect an essay in response.
I'm sorry, I know my love letters do go on, don't they? But I never asked you to write me back in that many words. A simple thank you will suffice.
So just leave a comment or a set of comments and tell me how. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, rate this video.
Okay, are you seriously doing a video without a shirt? God woman, what won't you do for ratings? Fine then, I'll take my shirt off. You want to show us the shoulders up? I'll show myself from the shoulders down. Yeah, that's right ladies, eat your hearts out. Alright, this video is going to be a response to Femitheist Divine, and I am going to answer the questions nice and concise. But then I am going to go into really freaking long detail, because I want to share a bit of my past, my awakening, my thoughts on this movement, and where I believe the future of our movement is headed. I want to share that with my audience. I also want to address the MGTOW controversy. I'll give you your trigger warning when the long part of the video begins, so that the more easily bored of you know when to give the video its thumbs up and leave. 1. Why did I become an MRA? Because the older I got, the more I noticed that women were overpowered and overprivileged, and how much the legal system favored women. Most importantly, the anger that came from being slapped in the face by greedy, hateful bitches who denied their power and privilege, insisting they were somehow victims. 2. Why do I hate or blame feminists? Feminism is what corrupted the traditional gender role, which was in some roundabout way, equality, and slanted all the power and privilege over to women, and continue to hold down males and the male effort to re-establish equality, and continue to demand even more from males while feigning victimhood, and work hard to build an anti-male environment, a pure hate culture towards males. 3. How did I become an MRA? By accidentally discovering Girl Writes What on YouTube, and I began making videos inspired a lot by the video's style of Sparky Fister, his quick back and forth editing with smart-ass witty rebuttals. Alright, here's your trigger warning. What I am going to do is for the next minute or so is to flash a page of text on the screen for a few seconds, and then go to the next page and so on. This way, for those of you who actually care to stick around and hear my incredibly boring long-winded speech, you can choose to pause the screen and just read for yourself page after page, pausing and unpausing, or you can just wait until the stationary text is done being displayed and listen to my text-to-speech program read out loud for approximately 1 hour. Again folks, if you want to bail on me, I wouldn't blame you, and I promise not to make a habit out of making such a long-winded video. I am effectively answering Femitheist Divine's questions, but just in an incredibly detailed way, and making it more geared towards my audience than her. Without any further ado, you've been trigger warned. Have you ever wondered who you are in this movement, where you stand, why you do it, what is your role in this movement, what is your importance in this movement, what good have you done and what good can you do? Have you ever wondered that? Well, I haven't. I know that ultimately I am just a keyboard commando who has more opinions about the subject that he preaches than the actual education of it, and you'd be amazed at how many people this applies to, who are oblivious to it. I am just a guy who makes videos. I focus more on entertainment and comedy. My audience is pretty much as big as it will ever get. Most people can't stand listening to a text-to-speech program robotically drone on and on about some shit, so I am convinced this is as big as I get, and I am okay with that. I also realize that I have no importance in this movement. I will never make a change in the movement. The most I can do is give momentum to this movement, or give momentum to any given direction, and the amount of momentum I can offer really isn't noticeable. I have about as much stroke in this movement as I do in the political arena, holding one voice, one vote, and being pretty damn irrelevant. And you know what, I am surprisingly okay with that. No, really, I accept that I can put forth a small contribution, but this movement is not all about me, and try as I might, I am never going to make big waves, or have any real overall impact, and this movement will go on with or without me, and you might be surprised at just how perfectly okay I am with this. Some other people in this movement are either upset because they don't have a high subscriber count, or they don't have much stroke, and sometimes they get hopping mad when the trends within the movement are not to their liking, and others have a bit of megalomania and seem to think they are carrying this movement on their back, or that they are some major player with a 5,000-man army ready to fight and die for them. Those people, for the most part, really need to step away from the internet for a little while. I have often called myself an MRA, rather than an MHRA or a MGTOW. I would like to clarify why that is. It's not so much philosophical differences. If you tell someone you are a men's rights activist, they immediately know what you're talking about. Even if they never heard of a men's rights movement, they can at least instantly figure out what it means. But if you say men's human rights activist, advocate, people wonder what the fuck that means. Let's face it, at first glance it sounds like an anti-PETA organization. It's as if you are saying we are men, in favor of human rights, rather than putting animals first and all that misanthropic animal-loving vegetarian bullshit. You really have to stand there and try to explain what it actually means. And then people will ask you, why don't you just call yourself a men's rights activist, and then you say men's rights are human rights. And then they look at you like you're a fucking moron who invents redundant words in an acronym for no apparent reason. And if you try to explain the reason, you just end up rambling a bit. If you say you are a MGTOW, people ask what that is. You have to say what the acronym stands for, and then they're left thinking men who go their own way is a euphemism for a homosexual movement, a pro-masturbating movement, or some celibacy club. You really have to go out of your way to explain what it means in order to avoid people coming to a very wrong conclusion. I don't call myself or gender egalitarian for various reasons. The first being, I don't believe men and women are the same thing that can swap roles and cast off the shackles of oppressive masculine and feminine social expectations. The second is, people say so you're like a feminist or something. I don't call myself a masculinist because the term is ambiguous even to people in gender politics, and it just sounds like a glorification of masculinity, so it doesn't even sound like something that represents the struggle for equal treatment of men and women. I don't call myself MRA+ because I am not a Kool-Aid drinking member of Rocking Mysteries cult. I just call myself MRA because it's a nice broad spectrum immediately recognizable term. MRM is, as I said, broad spectrum. It's an umbrella term that encompasses all the various forms of men's rights, male liberation, gender equality, etc., and on a philosophical level, that does describe me the best. Every term under the MRM umbrella refers to a specific philosophy or approach. I don't have a specific philosophy, and I don't believe there is one proper approach only. In fact, for this movement to succeed, there will have to be a multitude of approaches working in tandem. I don't mind so much when people want to talk about change within a specific subgroup of the MRM, because that is what it is. I do, however, get concerned when people talk about needed changes to the MRM as a whole. I'm not saying the speaker is instantly wrong, or is doing something in bad taste. I am only saying each time I see it, it just brings up a red flag, nothing else. But the reason it brings up a red flag is that there are many people in the movement that want to turn the entire movement into their own personal platform to launch their own utopian worldview. So to summarize all that, I identify as MRA because of its grammatical simplicity, and the fact that I mostly use MRA and MRM as umbrella terms, and therefore I really don't have to get way down into specific ideologies. I am the sort of person who refuses to get constricted by philosophy and ideology. The way I look at it is, if you believe males are underprivileged, and you believe this should change, you are an MRA. Those are seriously the only two qualifiers. I don't care in what way you think males are underprivileged, and I don't care how you think we should go about fixing this. None of that is either here or there. If you don't believe males are underprivileged, then I feel the need to educate you. If you know that males are underprivileged and you just don't care, or you think it is just, then you are a bad person. Now, for the part about how I came to acknowledge gender inequalities. To be honest, this really goes back to my childhood. Yes, I realize this rant is already painfully long, and the bad news is, it's only getting longer, folks. When I was about age 5, my father taught me to stand up against bullies. Well, one day this girl who was 7 years old was being a bully, so I stood up to her, and when she tried to physically push me around, I hit her. I got into a lot of trouble because I hit a girl. I tried explaining to my father that I did exactly as I was instructed. I pointed out her behavior, and I reminded him that this is the exact definition of bullying. He then explained that's all fine and dandy, but she was a girl, and I should have ran to him more mom and tattled, rather than standing up to a bully. I was told not to hit girls, and I immediately realized a double standard. As a little kid of age 6, I was abused by a babysitter. She was only 12, but she was very mean to me, and didn't hesitate to hit me, throw things at me, hold me down and repeatedly strike me in the face, and even one time picked me up and threw me. I told my parents about it a few times, but she always insisted I was just being out of control and she had to restrain me, and my parents just believed her because she had that sweet innocent look to her. I would have written that off as an isolated incident though, but I experienced a lot of meanness and violence from girls. It's like, when I was a little boy, any girl that was bigger than me because of age, had no hesitation to being a bully, although I will confess when I got into my teens, and lived in a horrible ghetto, when I walked outside I feared for my life, but it wasn't gangs of women I was afraid of, it was gangs of men. But I'm just saying, when I was a little boy, lots of girls were very mean and violent. I have a suspicion that if girls were stronger than boys, like the muscle mass was switched, nearly every male would be an abuse victim. I believe women would make up almost exclusively all the violence, and that there would actually be a lot more violence than there is. Again, I noticed as a child that when girls have a size advantage, they do not hesitate for a second to use violence against a smaller person. It is only when boys hit puberty and begin becoming physically strong really fast, and therefore have a somewhat permanent size advantage over females, that women stop being so quick to hit. It's like, when I was 7 years old, a 10-year-old girl was more likely to use violence or threats of violence against me than a 10-year-old boy. Like when boys are bigger and stronger, they often decide not to use their strength advantage, but the moment girls feel the least bit upset they don't hesitate to lash out. Now obviously I could be wrong here. I may have just had a unique experience. Maybe for example I just pestered girls and maybe said mean things to them to rouse their emotions as a flirtatious way of gaining their attention. So it is entirely possible I was physically hit a lot by girls because I was bothering them. And while I theorize a causal factor being that males are more merciful to the weak and or have more self-restraint, I can't help but contrast this notion against many examples of very mean and violent teenage boys who pick on the weak or start throwing punches over the silliest things. So I am not entirely convinced of this theory, but I do feel a need to point out that as a little boy I was physically bullied disproportionately by females. Again, maybe due to the fact I remember the meanness and the violence, I have completely forgotten the rest of the situation and I am therefore only remembering the outcome, not the situation leading up to it, and thus drawing the wrong conclusion. It's hard to say for sure when looking back on memories of being age 5 to 10. I noticed things like girls could groom themselves in various ways, like they could wear skirts or pants, they could wear dark colors or bright colors, they could wear high heels or tennis shoes, but our society would mock and scold any male that didn't dress in his appropriate gender. And it's not that I had a real big need to wear girls' clothing or anything, although I honestly wonder what it feels like to wear a skirt. Maybe I'll buy a kilt one day, call myself a Scotsman, get real drunk and challenge anyone that has a problem with my Scottish pride. Or maybe not. Again, it's not that I think these things in and of themselves make males underprivileged, it's that it is very symbolic of how girls get to live any way they see fit. Life for a girl is all about choices, and they can change their mind any time, but boys are locked into one role and one role only. But I honestly think the clothing and grooming thing might have been the thing that got me as a little boy to really recognize girls were just given everything. Girls can hit boys, but boys can't hit back. Ladies first, being told to watch my tongue when speaking in front of a lady, and all that sort of shit. And then by middle school I noticed that girls got a special treatment. I can't say they got a special privilege, just that they were treated better than boys by the school. I remember raising my hand in math class, asking the teacher if I could use the bathroom. The teacher, a female, I even remember the bitch's name, told me I wasn't allowed, I should have went before class, or I can use it when class is over. Well, the thing is, I had diarrhea and I wasn't so sure I could make it another 30 minutes. About 10 minutes later a girl raised her hand and asked if she could use the bathroom, and the teacher allowed her. I objected to this immediately. The teacher told me, well, girls have a harder time holding it. I got upset and just walked out of class and to the boys' room. I'd be damned if I was going to sit there and risk shitting myself because I was born the wrong sex. It was about that time I noticed the female teachers really sticking it to the boys. Aside from that one example, I can't think of too many clear examples, but I certainly around the age of 13 or 14 got the impression that women just didn't like boys. We were all viewed as filthy little things, and they gave a lot of preferential treatment to girls. Aside from the bathroom incident, I really can't think of any specific example, but it wasn't only mean angry female teachers that looked down on males as filthy little troublemakers. There was the time in middle school I called some girl a slut, or maybe it was a whore, and she got up and told the vice principal on me. This was during lunch, and I seriously got in trouble over it, and the whole time I'm thinking about how I get picked on, teased, and made fun of, and called all sorts of names. In fact, all the guys do. Oh, but a female is not to be insulted by a male. I also seen a lot of guys get beat up because another girl wanted him beat up. I learned real quick that males are pretty goddamn stupid creatures who will obediently obey their female masters like natural-born slaves, and I promised myself I would never become one of those happily obedient drones who risk life and freedom because a pretty girl told me to go do something for her. I swear, man. The amount of men who are just willing servants to the almighty vagina, it's just disgusting. And the thing is, I can't really blame women. Really, ladies, I don't blame you for a lot of the shit you do. Men want to get on their hands and knees and do whatever it takes to make you happy, whatever it takes to earn your approval, whatever it takes to earn your love and trust and sex, etc. And you as women take advantage of that and say, buy me shit, go do this for me, go beat that guy up. Again, it's hard for me to look at you ladies and say you're being bad. Males want to serve you, so you give them orders and threaten to take away their pussy privileges if they don't obey. However, here is where I draw the line. When men are waiting on you hand and foot, beating up other men for you, going to jail for you, buying you everything and giving you a free ride in life, the word you're looking for is worship, not oppress. See ladies, that thing guys are doing, they are worshipping you, not oppressing you. Worship and oppress are total opposites. Guys, I sometimes want to give the women's the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they are not evil, hateful, misandric beings rotten to the core with narcissism. Maybe they are just really bad with grammar. When I got a job I noticed that as a guy, I was expected to do all the hard work, for the same pay the women got. I remember how fucking useless pregnant women in the workplace are, and how they spend half the day sitting in a chair, getting a pity party for having to stand up for a whole hour being pregnant, while I have to stand up all day to pick up the slack, and get paid the same money. Again, if this were a blog, or a book, I would go into countless examples of me and other guys, being asked to do things that the girls who worked the same job, same pay, were never asked to do because they were only girls. But I am trying not to take a long rant and make it longer than I have to. I recall when I was 17 and I was in a band, my drummer Richard, who was 35, got a divorce from his wife. She was cheating on him, she was always fighting with him, she was always the one causing all the domestic violence. Not that it was that violent, but it was still technically domestic violence. I remember many times him going over to Bill's house. He was the bassist. He would go over Bill's house because his wife would run him out with her hitting and slapping, throwing things, and screaming and threatening. And then Bill stopped coming over to practice with the band, which was at my drummer's house where we practiced. He stopped coming over pretty much because his wife didn't want him to go for whatever reason. So at age 17, I seen a 35-year-old man controlled by his abusive wife, and I seen a 39-year-old man controlled by his wife. I told myself I would never be like them. My drummer's wife divorced him. I had to go to court because I was a witness to some ongoings in the relationship. At age 17, I got my first look at divorce court. Okay, let me just say, for any of you menginas out there that want to go on and on about how privileged us males are, let me know when you get a divorce, because the moment you walk out of the courtroom I am going to say, hey buddy, care to tell us all about how privileged you are as a male, and how the system just totally oppresses those women. Oh, I bet that patriarchal judge really favored you for being a guy, didn't he? Needless to say, my drummer lost everything, including his 2 kids that loved him, and hated their mother. When he walked out of the courtroom, his kids asked how it went and who they are going with. His lawyer said, say nothing. because he was under court order for the time being to have no contact whatsoever with his children until a further arrangement. He raced back home, and had, I believe it was 1 hour, to pack up everything and leave the home. After 1 hour, or maybe it was 2, whatever the time period was, the cops came with his ex-wife. It had something to do with restraining orders and all sorts of shit like that. So when she came to the house, and there were cops with her, he had to leave quickly and say nothing to her. If he made any effort to speak to her or the kids or return to the house, he would be arrested. So what he couldn't pack up in that time period was gone. Now the property of his ex-wife. Needless to say, the man could barely pack anything in that time period. And that was the end of my first garage band. And here's the thing, that weird restraining order with rules and stipulations I didn't even think could happen in America, were based on nothing whatsoever. The man never fucking hit her or the kids, or even threatened. Furthermore, he didn't cheat on her. She was sleeping with their boss, and he had pictures to prove it, and so obviously he was fired from the job, and had a restraining order against him not to show up at that company or his former boss. Again, there was no threat to her or the kids, but when she took the stand she said, "I'm afraid, Your Honor, and that's all it takes for a woman to get what they want." God forbid a woman be made uncomfortable or afraid of their own shadow. Jesus Christ, man, divorce court is a fucking joke. No demographic of people in anything resembling a free country should be treated the way the court system treats males. But apparently when it comes to divorce courts, American constitutional rights don't seem to actually apply. A few years later, when I was like 19, I had moved to a new neighborhood and began hanging out with some pretty cool homeless guys out in the woods. I had money, they had IDs to get beer, we instantly became friends. There was about 7 regulars down by the lake out in the woods, not far from the liquor store. All of these men had 2 things in common. Aside from being homeless, they had been divorced, and they were alcoholics. Perhaps we could say that their alcoholism leads to their wives divorcing them, and in some cases that might have been true, but one fact remains. In the divorce, they lost their house, their kids, sometimes even their car. In a few cases were thrown in jail for not being able to keep up with what I like to call ex-wife support. So, a man loses his house, car, kids, job, gets thrown in jail and now has a prison record. It makes it nearly impossible to ever get a job under such circumstances. So many of these guys just dropped out of society, hopped on a train, left the state, lived in the woods, worked construction jobs under the table and or panhandled, and drink their pain away. Again, we could say their wives were angels that gave them every chance and it was their alcoholism that ruined everything. But everything I recall from these guys and their situation and their character, just all the evidence points to: first came the divorce, then came absolute social and mental collapse, leaving behind a broken shell of a man with nowhere to go. All these guys had lived in my state for 10 or more years. Most of them had IDs from their native state, showing me, without even asking them, that these people were on the run from something and therefore can't go get themselves a new state ID. I'm guessing they are running from prison for not keeping up with their child support checks. I learned quickly that marriage was bullshit. A part of me wants to have sympathy for all the men who've had their lives utterly ruined beyond any real repair because of marriage and divorce. I want to have sympathy, but it is difficult. After all, what the fuck were you thinking? You pick up a rattlesnake, play with it, it bites you, and you lose your arm. Well, I want to feel sorry for you, but a part of me is sort of saying, dude, you were aware of the risks, so didn't you kind of ask for this? It's like the guy who has a friend that tells them the whole warning label on isopropyl alcohol that says it could cause blindness if you drink it, is just a scare tactic so people won't circumvent the alcoholic beverage rules and buy isopropyl to drink. Your friend tells you this shit and you drink it, and go blind. I want to feel sorry for you, but a part of me is actually saying, and you believed that shit your friend told you? There was really a guy going around the internet a long time ago saying that shit. Was he a jerk for giving bad advice? Yes, he was. However, if you took his advice, how fucking stupid were you? Anyhow, marriage is fucking stupid, don't do it. And it is a great example of how our female supremacist society functions. The problem here though is if you so much as have children, it's just as bad. Marriage or a child means you end up getting screwed by the female system, and we as a species must reproduce or go extinct. So unlike the whole don't get married bit, I can't in good conscience tell men not to reproduce, thereby advocate the extinction of the human race. However, if all current MRA/MGTOWs refuse to breed, it won't have any impact on society considering that MRA and the MGTOW subgroup practically don't exist and make up nowhere near 1% of the human population. And by the time MRM grows to a high enough percentage that it would make a difference to the human population, the MRM would have enough power to start changing the laws anyway. So my point is, don't get married, don't have kids, and all the ass clowns in the movement pushing their traditionalist utopian bullshit, fuck em, but forgive em, for they know not how stupid they are. And for all the women out there that constantly bitch at MRAs, or more accurately MGTOWs, and say things like, okay, yes, the divorce courts might be a little unfair to men, but it's not all women that do this, and you have to learn to trust. And to those women, let me just ask you this: if the shoe were on the other foot, would you be rushing out to get married? No, I didn't think so. And to all the feminists out there that try to show away the MGTOW argument with, look, it ain't like women are putting guns to your head and making you get married, so I don't consider marriage to be oppressive to men, because you are given a choice. Let me just say that when the slaves were freed, many of them entered themselves back into slavery, not because they liked slavery, but because it beat the alternative in many cases, and that's why a law was passed forbidding a person from entering themselves into slavery. But I think the better argument here is, you say the unfair divorce industry isn't oppression because marriage and childbirth is a choice. Well, let me ask you this: if the courts favored men the way they currently favored women, would you be screaming bloody murder in outrage over this injustice? You're goddamn right you would. Look, to make a long story less long, I have witnessed the empowerment and the privilege afforded to women. I have seen firsthand all my life how women get the best of both worlds and men are stuck with the short end of the stick. Women demand to be allowed in all areas of the military, yet these exact same women think that even though women are indeed tough enough to be in the military, they should remain exempt from the draft. Again, everything I am saying here is a very simplified glimpse of the injustices I have seen firsthand. I don't need to figure out how to extrapolate any given set of statistics. I have two fucking eyes that have seen enough bullshit. I don't need statistics to tell me what I already know, for the same reason that when I am standing soaking wet in the middle of a thunderstorm, I don't need to rely on the Weather Channel to tell me it's raining. Women are given such a free ride in life just by having a vagina. This is due to both culture, the judicial system, and biology. Jesus Christ, ladies, you really do have biology, the government, and our entire culture working to your benefit. And you know what? I think I would be willing to let it all go. I think I would be able to say, oh well, those are the bricks, and just let it all go. I've learned to accept that some people are born into wealth. Some people hit the genetic lottery and are just born with perfect looks and excellent health. And it's unfair. But oh well, life is unfair. No sense in walking around being resentful about it. I'd be willing to let all these gender injustices go if it weren't for just one little thing: feminists. Or more accurately, women who insist that in spite of all the undeniable, clear as day, blatantly obvious advantages and privileges they are given, somehow, they are the real victims, and oh how they are just oppressed people with no human rights. And men rule over them like brutal tyrants and keep them shackled to the kitchen sink like a Negro straight off the boat from Africa. I'm sorry, I just can't do it. I just can't turn a blind eye, for women, with all their privilege, to tell me they are victims. Oh, what a load of shit, and I just can't take it. Feminists, or more accurately I should say the overwhelming majority of women, not just political feminists, want to whine about their victimhood. When they do that, I just have to shake my head, pull up a chair and ask, do tell, O ye of great privilege, how indeed are you a victim? And what I get is lies and a world of make-believe. I hear men go around beating women. Males are violent. Look at the statistics. Males commit violence. Let me tell you something. Domestic violence, according to statistics and more importantly, my own eyes, have shown me that it's really 50-50. Aside from the fact the domestic violence shelter industry persecutes males and empowers females, and that includes the political pressure that causes the police to take a woman's word for everything and assume her to be the victim by default. Aside from the political judicial slight against males, domestic violence itself is really gender neutral, and I am sorry to do this, ladies, but I am yanking it off the table. You will not use your bullshit domestic violence fairy tales with its industry doctored statistics, to try to tell me women are victims of male violence. But the feminist says but males are violent against women outside of domestic violence. Nope, sorry, males are the overwhelming majority of assault victims both in the statistics and in my personal observation. Yes, it just happens to be males who are doing the violence, but the point is males are still the victims of male violence, not the other way around, and I would say it's a great excuse for males to claim victimhood, because the numbers do paint them as victims, but unfortunately it's males who are doing the perpetrating. So nope, this isn't gendered, it's just violence. If you are a woman, you are far more likely to be assaulted by another woman. Female on male violence in my personal observation is somewhat common. Female on female violence is also somewhat common. Male on male violence is a serious problem, but one you women do not have a claim to. When it comes to male on female violence, again outside of domestic violence, Sorry, but I have never once in my life even seen a man striking a woman outside of a 50-50 domestic violence situation. So again, allow me to reiterate, if you are a woman, and you are bitching about male violence, stop. Fucking stop. The feminist will bring up rape culture. Again, I think these women just need dictionaries. The word you are looking for is rape hysteria. We are not a culture that condones rape. We are a culture that has a paranoid hysteria that anything and everything is rape. Turn on the TV and it's 1,000,001 CSI shows displaying women as sexual assault, rape victims and evil male perpetrators. Stop it. Rape is not that common. The only way rape is remotely common is when you include every possible thing a man does as an act of rape. Peer pressure is rape. Offering a woman a beer and then getting laid is rape. Slut shaming and prude shaming is rape. Inappropriate touching is rape. Catcalling is rape. Looking at a woman is rape. Jerking off to porn is rape. Rape, rape, rape. Every goddamn thing is rape. Again, it's not rape culture, it's rape hysteria. Oh, and I just love how when men do men get raped too, suddenly the definition of rape becomes exclusively penis penetrating a vagina. I just love how they flip-flop on that. Anyhow, after including practically everything is rape, they then multiply by 10 or whatever number feels good, to compensate for women afraid to come forward. Right, here's a quick little test you can do. First, how many of your relatives have been raped? I mean real rape where the whole family knows about it, the police were contacted, etc. Now contrast that to how many girls you've dated that claim they were once upon a time raped. I've personally noticed none of the girls in my family have ever been raped, and yet pretty much every girl except for the last one that I dated, told me they'd once upon a time been raped. In other words, when it comes to women that I can verify have been raped or not, nope, no rape. When it comes to girls tugging on my sympathy strings and telling me about rape when I can't verify it, yup, they're all rape victims. You know what, maybe we should take them rape statistics, erase every situation that didn't involve a penis penetrating a vagina while the one with the vagina fought back and was screaming no, and then take that number, and divide by 10 to compensate for all the false claims. I think we might actually get a more accurate look at how many women are getting raped. I'm telling you, I have seen a countless amount of men beating up men. I have seen my fair share of women beating up women. I have seen often women hitting men, though I can't really say beating up men. I even seen one man get murdered, got his head blown off by a sawed-off shotgun. The dude lived 4 doors down from me, but I have never seen a man hit a woman, outside of mutual domestic dispute, and I have never in my life seen a woman getting raped. I've never heard of a woman getting raped in any real verifiable way like, hey dude, did you hear Melinda got raped the other day? Dude, her face is all bruised up. And cops came to her house and, nope, never heard that. Therefore fuck all the statistic horse shit. I'm telling you where I live rape pretty much doesn't happen. The next one I hear is women only make 70 cents for every dollar a man makes. Oh really? Show me the corporation that has an open published policy that the women are to only make 70% of the male employees. Show the state, federal, or even county law that says that's the way it must be. Nope, you can't do it. All you got is highly misleading statistics. Well, let me explain the mysterious ongoings behind your bullshit statistics. More men work than women because when you're a man, work isn't a choice. Next, men work longer hours because when the little lady gets fired, quits, or needs her maternity leave, her husband is going to pick up the slack. Again, work, for a woman, is mostly optional, yet it's pretty much mandatory for men, so men just work more yearly hours on average. All of these complaints about women being an oppressed group of people who need to fight for their equal rights, it all comes down to things like how women were treated in the past, and they always use distortions and one-sided evidence, and furthermore who the fuck cares about how shit worked in the year 1600? It isn't 1600 anymore. The other complaints come down to doctored statistics that paint a picture of women as victims. These statistics are bogus and you don't even need to examine statistics to know they're bogus. I hear feminists making complaints about other things that allegedly oppress them, like they have to shave their armpit hair or else society scoffs at them and this is why they are oppressed, this is why they are second-class citizens, and this is why men are pigs and proof of a patriarchal culture and yada yada yada. All I can say is, I pointed out that I noticed girls could groom themselves differently and wear different clothing from boys. I claim they got to wear pants or skirts. I need to point out, I was merely explaining how as a small child, on an emotional level, I noticed certain differences and examples of girls getting to have it both ways with either the pants or the skirt, and I mentioned it was somewhat symbolic of everything else. But you have to understand, I am not legitimately bitching about the fact that boys can't get away with wearing skirts. Sure, it's unfair I guess, kinda sorta, but Jesus Christ, it isn't something I would waste the time or the ink writing down on a list of gender differences I even give a fuck about. Feminists have taken this incredibly superficial thing I have just mentioned, and turned it into a serious talking point. Next complaint I hear is women are oppressed by video games and by TV and by magazines. Look, all I can say is shut up, just stop it. Women are no more oppressed by pop culture than men are by romance novels, so just stop making up shit and admit it. You goddamn women have it made. I mean, you really got yourself a nice free ride and one hell of a powerful pussy pass, and you're just making up bullshit to try to justify it. Feminists have to doctor statistics or just make up lies, for one very simple and obvious reason: when women with all their privileges complain about being oppressed victims, and you ask them to please cite an example, there is no truth to what they are saying. They have to make shit up. They have no actual basis for believing they're oppressed other than it is a woman's nature to walk around acting like a victim. Women want to feel like victims for the same instinctive reason men want to act tough and feel powerful. Men, even when in pain, will stand up straight, grit his teeth, do his best to laugh it off and say nope, didn't hurt me one bit. But women are the opposite. Even when they are not actually hurt, they grab themselves and holler, oh the pain, it hurts so bad, and yet, I think I can make it through the god-awful pain. Women just behave this way. They need to paint a picture of themselves as victims, and on a personal level, they need to see themselves as underdogs overcoming great odds, even when their accomplishments were handed to them on a silver platter. When feminists aren't busy making up statistics and fake words like objectification or rape culture or patriarchy, they are using third world women for their example. I am tired of seeing the spoiled and pampered middle-class white woman holler about how there are brown women in some foreign country they can't locate on a map, who live in a freakishly different society and speak a language they never even heard of, are victims because of female genital mutilation. Not that this is affecting the spoiled middle-class white bitch in any way, and not that these women honestly give a fuck. That's what really burns me up. These middle-class white first-world bitches don't for a goddamn moment give a shit about the brown women in bum-fucked Egypt. They are just trying to exploit their situation to piggyback off of it. They are effectively saying they, first-world bitches, are victims by proxy. Imagine a spoiled white bitch high up on her pedestal in her fur coat and diamonds, claiming that she is a victim, because women a billion miles away have it rough, and therefore she is by proxy a victim and is entitled to more power and more handouts. That's how ridiculous it is. That is how goddamn ridiculous feminists are. I can't stand when feminists advocate for more power for themselves and use the suffering of women that ain't got nothing to do with them, as justification for their quest for personal power. Now there is the other reason I blame feminism. Once upon a time men were disposable soldiers and plow horses working for the benefit of their wife and children. However, on the flip side of that coin, the women folk may have gotten off on doing light work around the house, but males did get authority over their wives. Divorced women were looked upon like lepers. Women didn't divorce often. When they did, they didn't automatically get everything just for having a vagina, and ultimately men did control the household. The husband made the decision when they were going to move and if they were going to move, and the wife didn't have much more say in this than the children did. The husbands may work like a slave all day long, but when they came home they were king of their castle. Women may have gotten it very easy escaping male responsibility with that pussy pass, but at the same time they were protected and provided for like children. Thus they were under the authority of that breadwinner like a child would be under the authority of its parents. So ultimately two very different roles that complemented each other and actually worked. Then came the Industrial Revolution, that made the workforce and the economy change. This opened up doors for women to earn a wage, whereas in the past their smaller bodies wouldn't have been able to handle the brutal work their husbands did. Then came smooth sailing and a good economy post-Industrial Revolution. Then came a woman's greed. Women wanted to play all the same games boys did, but they wanted to remain exempt from the responsibility of being a man. Well, men being natural-born suckers, easily willing to give women whatever they cry for, decided to start giving in to their list of demands, allowing them to have male privileges while avoiding male responsibilities while retaining female privileges. It didn't happen overnight, but it happened, and happened because of economic changes affording opportunities never before available. When nations get comfortable, our automatic response to bad ideas gets numbed and we start giving all sorts of bad ideas an opportunity. Feminism is just a politicized version of female narcissistic greed and resent towards males. I'm not trying to demonize women, I'm just saying there are good and bad traits inherent to both men and women, and feminism is the politicized and spiritual glorification of all the evil inside of women. This movement went on to create the very gender imbalances that I have just complained about. It could be argued in spite of all that was unfair to women, and all that was unfair to men, these totally different sets of unfairness counterbalanced each other and neither sex was really an oppressed victim of the other. I am totally willing to buy that much, but feminism is the disruption that caused the imbalance, pushes to make it more unbalanced in favor of women, and actively attempts to shut down any male effort to restore any sort of balance. So it's like, I don't care if we find some way of going back to the traditional roles. I don't care if we find some new age gender roles. I don't care if we really and truly screw women over by forcing actual equality down their throats and absolutely forcing them to live their lives like men. I mean, come on, talk about the ultimate punishment for being the world's most pampered and spoiled group of people, and I don't care if we create some other hybrid of gender roles. Hell, I'm not even 100% sure I'd even mind the majority of the unfairness to males, if we could just get the goddamn feminists, on women in general actually, from slapping me in the face by standing on their pussy pedestals and telling me they are the victims of oppression. I'm not saying it would be good or beneficial to males if we left our divorce courts broken and our default legal system the way it is. I'm just saying if it weren't for women adding insult to the injury by actually complaining, I'm not so sure I'd have the angry emotional drive to fight back against it all. After all, women are always going to have certain advantages like never actually having to get off their asses and do something with their lives. They're always going to have the privilege to sit around getting a free ride in life just for being female, and this is based on unchangeable human biology. It's unfair as fuck, but it's life. Just like males are always going to be physically stronger than women and more mechanically inclined, it's just biology, ladies, it's unfair. But that's life. It's just the fact that with all of their privileges and powers being given to them by the government, our culture, and by Mother Nature herself, they actually have the goddamn audacity to claim victimhood. That's my motivator, and it's feminists. Feminists are the cause of the injustice, and my personal motivator to fight back. Something feminists accuse MRAs of doing is whining and crying and complaining about petty superficial shit. That burns me up too, and let me tell you why. Just like with the statement about you males need to quit crying about how unfair divorce court is, it isn't like you males are being forced into it, and all you have to do to shut them down on that comment is ask, and if the shoe were on the other foot, you think you ladies would be all silent? Same thing, if you women had to deal with the goddamn fraction of the bullshitters men go through, would you be sitting there in silence? Fuck no. Then let me ask you something, why the fuck should we, women, even those who don't loudly declare themselves as feminists, say that the MRM is just whining? This is not an observation, this is not a piece of advice, it's an attack strategy, and it has its roots in the classic male-shaming tactic of doing wrong to a man, and then telling him if he dare get out of line and complain about the abuse, he's just being a little sissy, because we all know a real man doesn't cry, a real man takes his abuse with pride, because being the best goddamn punching bag you can be is what makes a real man. Now for how I actually became an activist. Around the year 2003 to 2008, somewhere in that time I would do my anti-feminist writings, mostly writings I shared with my friends and on various blogs I once upon a time had. I would surf the web looking for resources, and I realized there was a lot of anti-feminist literature out there, but these were mostly expensive books about how evil feminism is, etc. I would come across a long angry post on the internet, I would come across a personal blog. What I got a lot of was genuine misogyny. Like there was once a website called something like misogynycentral.org or .com, and while it did offer reasons why feminism was full of shit, and a touch of philosophy on why women are instinctively greedy little bitches who will take and take and take and then blame you for having nothing left to give them, aside from stuff like that, and a mentioning that a woman's greed will devour them the way a fish will eat all the food you give until its stomach explodes, aside from tidbits of philosophy like that, the site didn't offer any real direction for men. It was basically just the glorification of hating women. It insisted in the most vulgar language possible, that women are chronically and unrepairably useless parasites whose mere existence on Earth is a plague to man. Again, the site lived up to its name, it was just the promotion and glorification of misogyny. There were a few other sites and small organizations that were similar, but less radical. What I didn't see was anything I thought was really and truly beneficial to men. My goal was to expose feminism, that very force that corrupted a reasonable balance of power between the genders, and turned us into a female-centric society of male denigration. I wanted to expose feminism for what it was and put an end to this godforsaken hate movement. I believed once we derailed the hate train, we could slowly but surely re-establish a healthy gender balance, and we could go back to roles that actually worked for our sex, and we could actually possess the necessary legal advantages and disadvantages that made sense for our unique gender roles. Oh, and that reminds me, to any feminist or gender egalitarian watching this, before you object to the notion that we as men and women must have different roles, let me just explain something real simple to you. Women are simply not going to work 40 to 60 hours a week to support a stay-at-home house husband indefinitely. Perhaps 1 out of 500 women will do this, but never as much as half or even 1/3 will ever play this role, simply because men and women are not neurologically wired that way. Proof is, how much money do women spend on porn and prostitutes? Now compare that to men, and be sure to let me know when it starts to resemble anything looking like 50-50. Until then, realize, women are getting a free ride because of that pussy. They feel entitled to that free ride because of their nature. Men will be more than happy to give them that free ride because he wants the pussy, and due to the way women are wired, that's what he has to do to get it. Because of this, society is always going to consist of male breadwinners, and females living off of his work. And while there may be exceptions, there will always be exceptions, not the rule. Traditionalists are pretty much right, that the traditional way can still work, although I am sad about the sort of system we must create to restore a traditional society. There is yet an alternative. It's complex, and one day I will introduce my plan, but not today. But at any rate, feminism screwed it all up, and I want to expose that, so we as a society can heal and begin fixing things, whether it is going back to a traditional gender role for both of our sexes, or that really difficult to explain alternative I just mentioned. Either way, we cannot continue to live under a female supremacist system even if we wanted to. It is so far removed from our natural role, it will bring about our inevitable social and economic collapse no matter how many men and women would like to support feminism. You see, if feminism worked, I'd be hard-pressed to argue it from any sort of ideological or political objection. I would only have an emotional-driven opinion about something. The rule is, survive, by any means necessary. Nature doesn't give specific rules on how. Do whatever works. Well, feminism doesn't and can't possibly work. If it did, I wouldn't have much of an objection to it. The female of many spider species sometimes eats the male after copulation. This to me is abhorrent. However, for complicated reasons, this works among their species. Therefore, who am I to object to this behavior? How dare I criticize what works? If feminism worked, I'd put up with it. Just like women getting a free ride for having a vagina. I don't like it, but in a healthy cultural environment, this actually works. It's worked for how many tens of thousands of years? It fucking works, so I don't have to like it to know I don't need to fix a system that isn't broken. But the corruption that feminism brought breaks the system, and the system will collapse and bring about what girl writes what called the fem-apocalypse. Feminism, even if feminism was the only mistake we as a culture/a nation/society made, all by itself would eventually bring about its utter collapse. Back in 2005 I started a website trying to explain this, a website geared towards exposing the flaws of feminism and many other gender-based flaws. The site was taken down in 2008 because apparently it was a hate site, or at least that's what my host told me when the site was closed. Maybe it was feminists that complained, or maybe it was all the other miscellaneous political topics of an incredibly politically incorrect nature that existed on my forum attached to the website. Who knows what aspect of the site made it a hate site? All I know is, I'm a free speech motherfucker, and when I open a forum, you guys can talk about anything you want. I am highly allergic to censorship, so I opened a forum, lots of talk of illegal immigration, banking, Federal Reserve, Jewish banking conspiracy, secret societies, all sorts of shit. I just took the different topics that were reoccurring and gave the topic its own sub-forum to keep it off the main forum. I let my audience choose the topics they wanted to talk about. So who knows what the real topic on what part of the site got the complaint that had my host terminated. At any rate, I never got that much traffic outside of spam, and my only real contribution was on gender theories. Point is, I looked for larger sites that I could be a part of, and never really found anything of any serious interest in those days. There were websites about fathers' rights, and like I said, the glorification of misogyny. But either I wasn't looking hard enough and using the right keywords, or men's rights activism was only a micro fraction of what it is today. I really hope it's the latter. I really hope the reason I didn't find much back in those days is because our movement was that small, and this is a sign of just how big and fast we are growing. I eventually just gave up caring about the shit. Then in 2013, I'm thinking early February, I was searching through YouTube for Marilyn Manson videos. I typed in disposable teens, and somehow that led to the suggestion of the disposable male by Girl Writes What. Her channel then led me to discover John the Other, Rocking Mystery, Pingrove 33, Typhon Blue, Barbarossa, Stardusk, Integral Math, Snake Plisskenist, Micro Media, the AVFM radio website, and the list just goes on and on. Funny thing is, I did see some videos by the ignored gender about misandry in commercials. fell in love with watching his channel, and this was about a month or so before I discovered girl rights what, but when I discovered the ignored gender, and for the first time ever heard this word called misandry, I watched a lot of his stuff, bookmarked his channel, never actually subscribed for some reason, and then when I switched computers and started using this super fast and furious gaming machine I built last Christmas, I totally lost all my old favorites, and forgot the name of his channel, and rediscovered him through Girl Rights What. Actually I think it was from Pingrove33's channel I rediscovered him, but again I wouldn't have heard of him without Girl Rights What leading me to the whole list of MGTOW/MRAs. So early February of 2013, Girl Rights What is how I discovered this whole movement. So I say I am new to the movement, but in a way, guys, I've been around a long fucking time. Where the fuck you guys been hiding all these years? I fell in love with how new media can take a topic and tell a story with it. I wish I had a way of duplicating his style. But telling a story the way he does, I just don't have it in me. He is the champion of narration. I liked Integral Math's charisma, he has an awesome personality. Sparky Fister, I fell in love with his back and forth editing. A feminist says something stupid, Sparky cuts in with a sarcastic retort, back and forth. It's very entertaining and pretty simple. It's one of those things, so simple, but damn it works, doesn't it? So I subscribed to his channel when he only had 2 videos, and was always looking forward to seeing more of his work, because Sparky was just awesome. Then Christina had made a video about gun control. Me and her have something of a history from my days of atheist activism. I've always wanted to tell her off. The only thing she ever had going for her was that feminism video and why she didn't support feminism. I thought the world of her, and every video after that she seemed to contradict herself by acting more and more like a feminist. It got to the point where I realized what a feminazi politically correct cultural Marxist egalitarian social justice piece of shit she is, and really began to dislike her. Then she deleted that one good video about her not being a feminist, proclaimed she was a feminist, and made a video about gun control, thus inspired by the comical style of Sparky Fister, and his simplistic back and forth editing for a quick retort. I made a response video to her. I then bragged to Integral Math about it because he had just got through making a video response to her gun control video. So he checked out my video, gave a thumbs up for the gun rape culture bit, and got me a few hundred views with that thumbs up. Then I made a video about hypocrisy of the so-called tolerance leftist bullshit. I really hate those tolerant fucks. Not a drop of tolerance in them. You either hate what they hate or they hate you, and that's what passes as tolerance. I made a 4-part response to Tool Time 9901. And that I guess you can say was my first MRA video. It got like 3 or 4 views. Then I made a response to those pesky dames about slut shaming, went to bed, woke up the next day and had nearly 1,000 views and 100 subscribers. Holy fucking shit, how, why? Well, I responded to all my comments and was happy that people had seen it. I had no idea why that video got so many views. I click my subscribers list to see what people have been up to, and notice Girl Rights What gave that video a thumbs up. Now I know why the video was so popular, and so I wrote her a huge letter, because I just couldn't believe an MRA that big, that iconic, actually noticed my little channel. She then made a video and featured my channel, video, that amped up the views and the subscribers even more. I am guessing through that effort, Thunderfoot noticed my channel, gave a quick thumbs up to the video, and now my tiny little channel had a video with thousands of views, and I had hundreds of subscribers. The rest is history, guys. I just been making videos when I can. I've been keeping them MRM themed because that's my passion, and I know who my audience is, and I know you guys come here for the anti-feminism topic, not my thoughts on gun ownership or my opinion of the latest video game. I know who my audience is and why you're here. Men's rights is my passion, and MRA/MGTOW is my audience, so it's all good. And speaking of MGTOW, for some reason, MGTOW is getting a bad rep from a lot of MRAs lately. I don't know what the deal is. I've personally noticed the most friendly people from the day Girl Rights What introduced me, up until even today, the majority of the friendly inboxes have been from people with MGTOW written somewhere in their screen name. You guys have always been friendly and cool as hell with me, so I really don't get the hate. I hear shit like they're gender ideologues who think they can circumvent biology and things like they're worse than the feminists or their libertarian fanatics. Oddly, I also hear the opposite, they're cultural Marxist, leftists. I've been hearing you guys are left-wing, then I am hearing you are right-wing, and I hear not that I am saying this is all MGTOWs, just some. Dude, what the serious fuck? I don't get it. Why are people dissing MGTOW? And if you guys want to criticize MGTOW, pick a topic and stick to it. Don't tell me left-wing communism and then turn around and tell me right-wing libertarianism. And if you're going to say some of them only, not all, give a fucking percentage estimate of what you're talking about. You mean 1% of them are batshit crazy? Because dude, at least 1% of every conceivable movement is batshit crazy. When I gave a glowing review to Femi-Theist Divine's video on teaching gender-blind anti-rape lessons, I got a lot of people who flipped the fuck out like I was a secret agent working for an enemy nation or some tinfoil hat crowd stuff, and yeah, a lot of them were MGTOWs. However, I'm thinking about half my audience are MGTOWs, so when I compare the 3 guys who did the biggest flipping out, to half my subscriber list, I'm looking at less than 1% of my MGTOW audience. And I compare it to the 20 or more long warm friendly inboxes I have gotten from MGTOWs who were very friendly, very much welcoming me to the movement, and really complimented my channel. Are there some wacky MGTOWs out there? Well, of course, but they don't even come close to representing the average MGTOW, at least not from my audience, and not from what I have experienced. Like I said, every movement is going to have its weirdos. Also, I get the feeling that MGTOWs, at least here on YouTube, seem to really be several different factions with differing takes on what it is to be MGTOW. Some of these people are celibate, they don't have sex at all. Others tend to be more like pick-up artists. I've even spoken to a gay MGTOW. Some MGTOWs have a very strong dislike towards women and are pretty open with their distrust of women. To be honest, I really have a hard time blaming them, but my point is, I have personally witnessed far too much diversity in MGTOW to brand MGTOW with any sort of negative label or accusation, so I seriously don't know what the deal is. Maybe there are just people in the movement with a marriage fetish. If so, they seriously just need to keep that shit to themselves. If you want to get married, I wouldn't advise it, but it's your choice. You wanna drink isopropyl alcohol to get a buzz? I wouldn't advise it, but I ain't gonna stop ya. And when you see men who don't want to get married, don't want to have kids, let them go. You ain't their daddy. What fucking business is it of yours? Their lack of getting married is not taking away your right to get married. And furthermore, what few men out there are MGTOW isn't going to kill off the over-bloated human population. I say wait until this movement is big enough for that to even be a potential problem to start bitching about it. In fact, that's something we should all think about. I see so much arguing and bickering and side-taking, and petty infighting over the utmost superficial shit. Why? We as a movement have zero fucking influence. Let's wait until larger movements start kowtowing to us the way they do the feminists, then we can start dividing ourselves into 1,000,001 different philosophies and ideologies, etc. A lot of this infighting is left-wing versus right-wing. Well look, I've bashed the left-wing pretty hard. But I ain't really a right-wing guy. What I mean by that is, I don't see a big difference between being ruled by big government on the left or big corporations on the right. As much harm has come out of left-wing, I feel like left-wing is running us off of a cliff at 100 miles per hour and the right-wing wants to run us off a cliff at only 15 miles per hour, but we're going over that cliff one way or the other. A particular MRA said that right-wing and men's rights are really one in the same, so he pushes right-wing politics as a way of promoting men's rights. Okay, look, if it's really one and the same, then hush about your right-wing politics and just push men's rights as a means of perpetuating your right-wing politics. Since of course as you said they are one and the same, unless of course you don't really believe what you just said. I'm telling you right now, I got no love for the left wing, but we can kick out all the Democrats and replace them with Republicans, and men will not gain any rights out of it whatsoever. I'm not dissing right-wing politics, I'm just saying spinach is good for you, but no matter how much of it you eat, it ain't curing your cancer, so I ain't going left, and I ain't going right, I am going straight to men having rights. And we can argue and squabble about gender theory and gender roles later, but for right now, let's just look past the shit we disagree on, and focus on what we do agree on. For me, I say men don't have equal rights, and we should have equal rights, and I say feminism is the enemy. If you can agree on that, that's all I'm asking, and once this movement grows and we get some political muscle, we can then start arguing about all the finer details about what a man's role is and what a woman's role is. Big government versus big corporation. Whether or not we should get married, we can squabble about the finer details later, let's just stick together on what we do agree on. So let me end this video with a summary. 1. Why did I become an MRA? Because the older I got the more I noticed that women were overpowered and overprivileged and how much the legal system favored women. Most importantly, the anger that came from being slapped in the face by greedy hateful bitches who deny their power and privilege, insisting they were somehow victims. 2. Why do I hate or blame feminists? Feminism is what corrupted the traditional gender role, which was in some roundabout way, equality, and slanted all the power and privilege over to women. and continue to hold down males and the male effort to re-establish equality, and continue to demand even more from males while feigning victimhood, and work hard to build an anti-male environment, a pure hate culture towards males. 3. How did I become an MRA? By accidentally discovering Girl Writes What on YouTube, and I began making videos inspired a lot by the video style of Sparky Fister.